Hi everyone, welcome to this session working at ADA. I think we'll wait a little bit so that everyone has time to join, and we'll introduce ourselves and what we're going to do in the next 2 minutes. So we'll just wait for a little bit, if that's okay with everyone. Thanks everyone for those who are joining. We can see there's still a few of you coming in, so we'll wait a little bit before starting. Great. So yeah, I think there's quite a few of us now. Welcome. My name is Anna Coulomb. I'm the Public Participation and Research Lead at the Ada Lovelace Institute. Each of the panelists will also present themselves in a minute, but just before we start, we are here to talk about what is it working at Ada. We have multiple roles for a researcher position currently being advertised, and until Wednesday, the 19th of July. So we are using this opportunity to share a bit more about what working at Ada looks like. And please also just to say, use the Q&A function rather than the chat if you have questions, and then we'll go through them after the presentation. Also, just to say, the questions will be read anonymously to protect the privacy of potential applicants. And yeah, we'll get started. We'll explain in the next few minutes what the Ada Lovelace Institute is, how do we work, a bit more about the position of the researcher specifically. But just before that, if the panelists can introduce themselves. Welcome, everyone.
Hi everyone, I'm Graham Hopper, Human Resources Partner at the Nuffield Foundation, which the Ada Lovelace Institute is part of.
Sorry, couldn't find my unmute button there. Hi everyone, my name's Lara Groves. I'm a researcher at Ada in Ada's Emerging Tech and Industry Practice Directorate, and I research issues of AI accountability.
Hi everyone, I'm Roshni Mudvadia, also a researcher in the public participation and research team with Anna, and I'm working on some quantitative projects. Thank you.
Amazing, thanks so much. And you'll be able to hear a bit more about the type of research that Roshni and Lara work on, so that you have some examples, more concrete examples. So let's get started. So as I mentioned at the beginning, the purpose of this session is to give you an overview of Ada, who we are, what we do, how do we do it, and how do we like to work together. And we'll also give you an insight into the role of the researcher specifically. So just a bit of background, the Ada Lovelace Institute was established by the Nuffield Foundation in 2018. In partnership with a few organizations, as you can see on the slide, so the Alan Turing Institute, Royal Society, British Academy, the Royal Statistical Society, the Nuffield Council on Bioethics, Wellcome Trust, Tech UK, and Luminate. And our mission is to ensure that the data and AI work for people and society, and that the benefits and privileges that are generated by data and AI are justly and equitably distributed and experienced. So we do this by convening diverse voices so that we create an inclusive understanding of issues arising from data and AI, and we build evidence so that there's rigorous research and the decisions that are being made are based on this evidence. And also we shape and inform good policy and practice so that we can prioritize the benefits and the design, making sure that they have an equitable impact. So how Ada is structured, we have 3 domains of research. One is the society, justice, and the public sector, where we explore how to organize society and public services in a data age. The other one is the emerging technology and industry practice, where we explore the implications of new and emerging technologies and how they can be held accountable. And then the third one is law and regulation, where we explore how to govern and regulate data and AI and ensure that they deliver individual and societal benefits. We also have a 4th directorate, which covers the public participation work, where myself and Roshni are part of, so to ensure that the public are involved in the evidence we have, as well as we kind of take care of our research practice and assure the integrity of our research. So our 6 principles in which we really take very seriously and which we align with, it's independence. So we are independent of government and policy. Quality, rigor, and credibility are very important for us as well, and for the research that we do. We start from a position of empirical curiosity, and then critical awareness as well of power dynamics. And then from there, we produce rigorous evidence to inform policy. Collaboration, interdisciplinarity, and openness are very important to us as well as connectivity and diversity. It's also important that our work is timely, relevant, and that can have an impact. And then finally, another principle for us is being able to monitor, evaluate, and assess the impact of our work. So then now I'll hand over to Lara to talk a bit more about our strategic goals as an organization.
Thanks, Anna. So at Ada, we have 6 cross-cutting strategic goals underpinning our Ada strategy for the years 2021 to 2024. And these kind of reflect our priority issues. All of our projects aim to achieve at least one, but they often achieve more than one of our strategic goals. So the first goal is interrogate inequalities caused by data and AI. So that's thinking about how the adoption of data-driven technologies might affect inequalities and exacerbate exclusion. Rebalance power over data and AI. We develop and trial practical regulatory and legal accountability mechanisms to help rebalance power over data and AI. Third is amplify the voices of people, and that looks like ensuring public opinion, attitudes, and concerns are presented in and help to inform debates around data and AI. Promoting sustainable data stewardship, so that looks like exploring routes to responsible and trustworthy data stewardship, governance, and practice. Number 5 is anticipating transformative innovations. So that's foreseeing prominent emerging technologies coming down the track and thinking through possible impactful sectoral transformations within industry. And finally, we create space for diverse scholarship. So that means facilitating interdisciplinary research through sort of our convening power and also our research partnerships. And Anna, if you can move me on to slide 8. I'm going to talk a little bit about how Ada thinks through impact. Perfect, thank you. So there are 5 main ways that we think about impact as an organisation. And I think a key thing to note is that we don't actually write for academic audiences specifically. So our impact might look a little different to those from sort of academic backgrounds. So rather than just measuring the number of citations, for example, we take more of a holistic view to thinking about our change in the world. So I'll talk through a little bit more about those 5 pieces. So understanding and awareness is one. So that's specifically geared towards surfacing evidence that a product or a certain policy might have negative or unintended consequences for certain groups. Or it might be raising awareness about an AI or data-related issue that's had little research or media coverage. For example, attitudes and perceptions is about building the evidence that produces new knowledge that might change broader public perception and some of the prominent narratives around data and AI, and crucially includes and encapsulates our public engagement work. So that includes our deliberation, attitude surveys, lived experience panels, and community engagement, with a view that this leads to new appreciation for alternative views. Third is capacity. So we want to equip people with sort of new knowledge and skills that might enable them to generate impacts or adapt to change. Or it might be that our research leads to the development of new infrastructure or models or other organizations that might spearhead or undertake future work in a certain research area. Policy and law. So we think about the ways in which our work provides research evidence that makes a policy or a law possible. And we also advise those developing policy and law and engage quite cohesively with policymakers and legislators in the UK and the EU in particular. And lastly, practice. So our work seeks to provide evidence that influences practice in regulatory bodies, for example, public services, and also the tech industry. And we like to think that our research contributes to decisions that have delivered societally beneficial change to products, services, organisations, and certain procedures. I'm now going to pass over to Roshni, I believe, to take us through to the next slide.
Thanks, Lara. Over to you, Roshni.
Thank you. And so when it comes to our team, our people come from a real range of disciplinary backgrounds. We really value different forms of knowledge and different forms of expertise, and actively encourage kind of the sharing of this knowledge through regular meetings or kind of regular learning sessions as well. And I found quite different from the at Ada compared to other organizations is that we're quite flexible as well in our organizational structure. So rather than working in very static teams, we try to embed a lot of collaboration across the organization. And this is really to avoid kind of siloed kind of working. But the key is that we kind of maintain clear lines of accountability and responsibility in each project and promote kind of cross-organizational agreement on strategic goals as well. Now pass back to Anna to talk about the researcher roles that we're advertising for.
Thank you, Roshni. That's great. Yes, so at the moment, as we said at the beginning, we're advertising for multiple researcher roles. These are in principle full-time roles, 35 hours per week. They are 2-year contracts, and they start at just over 35,000 British pounds. As you can see, they are London-based roles, although a hybrid of home working is also possible. And I've seen that a few of you have questions that are already being answered by Graham on, if it's possible to work from elsewhere. We will cover that. We will cover that as well again as soon as we finish the presentation. The type of skills and experiences that we are looking for. So we look for experience of social sciences, as well as quantitative and or qualitative analysis. You don't have to have both quantitative and qualitative. We consider either or of those type of research skills, as well as policy and legal analysis. We also look for researchers who can write with clarity for a variety of audiences. As Lara was saying, we are not an organization that aims specifically or exclusively at the academic audiences, but to the wider policy as well as the wider public. The researcher should also be good at balancing a diverse workload, so you won't be working possibly on only one project discretely, but actually potentially be involved in more than one thing with different timelines. And then also we look for colleagues who can also build strong relationships across Ada and beyond, including policymakers, industry, civil society. As you said, so at the beginning, it is important for us to be connected and to work in collaboration. So that's quite important for us. And then as you can see on the right-hand side, you will be managed by a senior researcher who sits under a directorate. And then of course, managed by our executive director, Fran Bennett, who is leading the organization at the moment. So yes, we hope this is clear in terms of the type of role we're looking for. We'll answer questions in a minute, but examples of types of research that you might be working on. So for example, and these are just examples, but you might be working on investigating the impact of generative AI on different sectors like education or health, or you might be researching and drafting explainers of complex topics so that we can put them in our website and share them with different type of audiences. Or you might be organizing roundtables, webinars, workshops with a variety of stakeholders like government, legal, industry, civil society. So it's quite a nice diversity of activities and projects that you could be involved with. But Lara and Roshni can tell us a bit more about specific actually projects that they have or are working on, and you will get a bit more flavor about the type of research that we do. So maybe Lara, we start with you.
Perfect. Thank you, Anna. Yeah, I thought I'd share a little bit about the most recent project that I'm wrapping up with Ada. So this is a project that sat quite neatly across Ada's work exploring AI accountability mechanisms and also our public participation and research work. And the project was centered around exploring the role of public participation approaches in commercial AI labs. So it was really almost like a Pathfinder project. It was a really interesting opportunity to explore an emerging research area and cement Ada's position in this quite nascent space. It was interesting to me as I was thinking through potential outputs for this work, and we landed on a bit of a kind of non-traditional ADA output, which was an academic paper to the leading AI ethics conference. And then for me personally as a researcher, I'm very interested in technology industry discourse and incentive structures, so it was really great to be pick through some of the weeds of those questions. And then in terms of research design, it was a qualitative study. So I led several interviews with industry practitioners and public participation experts in order to surface current attitudes and approaches for public participation and engagement methods in some of the most prominent AI labs that are working today. And it also involves an extensive literature review and lots of really interesting background conversations with researchers interested in participatory AI. And yeah, as I said before, decided that in order for this work to have impact, it would be really great to get this directed to more of an industry practitioner audience. So I had my academic paper accepted to Fairness, Accountability and Transparency in Machine Learning, otherwise known as FACT conference, which was brilliant as it meant I was able to travel to Chicago in June to present the paper in person, which was a really wonderful opportunity for me as a researcher to both represent ADA to a different audience and also to grow my network. So yeah, that's TSPV. I'm going to hand to Roshni, who can talk us through the survey.
Fantastic, thank you.
Thanks, Laura. And yeah, so the most recent project I worked on was a national survey of public attitudes to AI. It was a collaboration with the Alan Turing Institute, which Anna mentioned earlier. And it was very different in the sense that we were really interested in understanding attitudes to very specific applications of AI. So we asked about various uses that people might encounter in their everyday lives, as well as things that they probably wouldn't have much experience of. And for that project, I was able to kind of take on the raw data, analyze the raw data, collaborate with colleagues to kind of workshop through what the interesting insights might be. So really iterative process of kind of pulling out key stories from the data, as well as working on the report, writing the report with other colleagues as well. And in terms of outputs, we were able to kind of publish a report, which is on our website, host a launch event with various stakeholders from kind of policy spaces, civil society, kind of non-profits, those are different industries. And we're also working on interactive microsite as well. So kind of a web page for this data, so that can be kind of a living thing that we keep adding to and keep kind of referring back to. So giving back to the public and creating kind of a public facing output as well.
That's great. Thanks so much, Roshni. So just before going into the Q&A, I see that you have many questions, which is great, and we'll go through them. Over to Graham now to tell us a bit more about the hiring process.
Hi, everyone. So just to pick up on Anna's previous slide, just introducing the researcher role that we're currently advertised. She said about the salary. If you wanted to know a bit more about the terms and conditions of the role, then you're welcome to have a look at the vacancy listing on the ADA's website, which has a bit more of a summary of the terms and conditions relating to it. And there's also an email address there, recruitment@nuffieldfoundation.org, that you're welcome to email if you've got any specific questions. But just to sort of talk through a bit more, so she mentioned it's a London-based role. There's a few people who have been asking whether we could accommodate remote working arrangements. Unfortunately, we're not able to accommodate kind of globally kind of remote arrangements due to kind of tax and legal issues. It is a London-based role. And we would be expecting the people in the role to be coming into the office each week. There is some kind of home working, try and get a good balance between home working days and office attendance, but we are looking for someone who can be in the London office each week. We think there's quite a lot of benefit from that, and the ability to kind of collaborate and learn from each other and kind of work on different projects. But we are a licensed sponsor under the UK government skilled worker visa scheme. So if you were an international candidate and you didn't have the existing right to live and work in the UK, then we might be able to sponsor you, and we'd cover the fees relating to that visa application, but you'd be responsible for your relocation costs. Also, just while I'm talking about kind of terms and conditions, there's been a couple of questions around the fixed term contracts. So we've got these positions are based on a 2-year contract. We feel that's kind of like the right amount of time based on our experience for people to get really stuck into some projects and kind of share their knowledge and experience with colleagues within the team, and also kind of develop themselves. So that's why we can't make any guarantees at this stage around extensions to that, or kind of opportunities for progression. But we do really kind of, the ADA team do spend a lot of time working with their researchers and really kind of looking at how they can develop and through working through different projects. So just to talk about the recruitment process, so the vacancy listing, it links through to the applied recruitment platform, which we've been using for the last few years now. And that's a platform that we think has been quite effective in reducing potentially any biases in our recruitment decision making. So rather than traditionally where you might have submitted a CV and a cover letter, we still ask for candidates to submit a CV, but instead the online application has a handful of questions. That's normally about kind of 4 questions that we ask candidates to complete, and there's a 250-word response to those. And that's just for us to get a sense of your motivations for working with ADA, your research experience, and a bit around kind of how your experience of communicating research or having impact with your research. So you submit those questions, the responses to those questions. And then when the application's closed, there'll be a panel of kind of 3 to 4 people within the ADA team who'll start reviewing those responses, and your answers are anonymized and they're randomized. So this panel blind reviews these answers, and through that process, we kind of, that comes to a final shortlist. And we'll invite those candidates then for that shortlist for interview. Interviews ideally are in person, but we can also accommodate video interviews as well. The interview process sometimes depends on how many candidates we've got, but normally it's an hour-long kind of interview. There might be one stage, sometimes a second stage, and the interview will just have a number of questions which we kind of drawing on your experience of your kind of research experience, and also your interest in ADA, and helping us to kind of get a sense of what projects you might be suited to within the team. Also, of course, the important thing is that interviews are also an opportunity for you to find out more about the role and ask questions. We'll quite often also use some kind of task as part of the interview process. So it might be that we've given you a brief that you're asked to prepare a presentation for, that we'll use as kind of a discussion point at the start of the interview. Or sometimes we might ask for a writing sample to get a sense of where you've perhaps done a piece of like research, or you might have done like a blog post or an op-ed or something like that, just to get a sense of your writing and your communication style. Once we have, just to kind of talk through timelines as well, there's been a couple of questions around that. So when we have done the shortlisting, we'll try and give candidates always at least a week's notice of the interview. Interviews, normally, we like to kind of confirm offers normally after about a couple of weeks of interview taking place. And for this role, ideally, we'll be looking for candidates to be able to start in September, October of this year. There may be some flexibility with that, but that's really kind of what we're aiming for with this. So if it's okay, I might just run through, there's quite a few kind of HR related questions. So I'm just going to make sure I've kind of covered off everything that's been people are asking. So yeah, just to confirm, we're open to candidates based outside the UK for applying, but this is a UK based role, but we can support that with candidates with a skilled worker visa if that's something they require. These are full-time, as in 35-hour per week roles, but we are a little bit flexible with hours. So if someone does have some ongoing study commitments, such as a PhD, we will consider that and see how we can work around that. We've got quite a few questions coming in, so I'm just trying to make sure. Someone's asked, is there a particular template or preferred page limit for the resume? As we said, we try to avoid cover letters, so we don't accept cover letters, but CVs, ideally try and keep it kind of 2 sides. We just really want to get a sense of your kind of, be able to kind of quickly see kind of your professional and academic experience, and really highlight any key pieces of work you've delivered, and also highlighting your particular skills. Separate to this, someone has asked, do Ada offer any entry-level or internship or work experience type opportunities? That's something we're currently considering. We're trialing it with a couple of universities at the moment, and we're about to bring in some research assistant roles for about a 3 to 6 month period. So we'll see how that goes, and kind of evaluate that, and then I'm sure it'd be likely that we'll advertise further positions in the future. I
think there's a few questions on timelines. How long does it take to hear back after submission? And then also if we provide feedback to all candidates.
Someone's just asked a technical question around the can the visa process be undertaken from inside the UK? Yes, it can do. I mean, every kind of situation is slightly different depending on your particular circumstances. And depending on the type of visa you're here currently, depends on whether you can apply it in country or whether you have to leave the country to apply. Someone's asked a good question around if the answers are random with regards to the apply process. If answers are randomized, does that mean individual applications are not considered holistically? Yes, that's correct. So the way that the system splits up your responses and kind of allocates them to different reviewers to review, that means you shouldn't refer to previous responses in that particular response, because you won't be able to, we can't see the full chain of responses from a candidate. A couple of questions are how many candidates we're looking for, and how long, and how many people do you expect to shortlist? It's a good question. We never know really until we see the candidates come in and the quality. I mean, typically we try and interview no more than kind of about 6 or 7 candidates, but for a role like this where we have got a couple of open positions, and we're expecting quite a high volume of candidates, then it might be that we actually do an initial shortlist or long list of kind of a greater number of candidates. So perhaps we'll do some kind of, have some introductory conversations or something beforehand to start narrowing down that number. I don't know if you want to kind of move on to the,
Yeah,
we're talking quite a lot, so whether we move on to the other the Q&A, because there's some other more questions around what a day in the life of a researcher looks like. So
exactly, that sounds great, and this way we give you some more time to go through the other more HR questions. Thanks so much, Graham. Yeah, that was really helpful. So yeah, there's a few questions related to the role, the research experience required, so we can tackle some as many of these as we can. So for example, someone's asking if it's possible to start in this role with no prior experience or knowledge in AI at all. And if so, what skills or elements you should highlight in the application. So I would say yes, and Rojni and Lara, feel free to add to that. For example, as I mentioned before, the role of the researcher might also involve organizing webinars, roundtables, events. So there's project management skills as well that you might want to highlight that will be helpful. Or you might have experience doing research in other areas, but that are also very important. For example, we look at the impact of data and artificial intelligence on health or climate or public services. So you might have experience researching these areas, and therefore it wouldn't really have an impact whether you have in-depth knowledge on AI or not. So I would definitely encourage you to apply if you think you meet the requirements in the job description, even if you don't have prior knowledge of AI. Someone's asked if we will share this session. Yes, this is being recorded, and we will share that. It will be available online. So no worries if you have to leave early or you've missed some of the answers that we are sharing now. would you consider hiring researchers from other backgrounds, not the social sciences? Yes, I think we're looking for a researcher that has an understanding of, either qualitative or quantitative methods, the basic process of doing research and the ethics around it, and, just an understanding of research design. So if you feel that your background aligns with the job description, even if you don't come from a social science background strictly, I would also say go for it. Expectations around type of qualitative or quantitative research for this role, for example, academia versus industry. We have a mix. Some of us have an industry background or an academic only background and now have come into industry, or a mix of both. So yes, it doesn't matter really if you come from academic strictly background or if you've always been working in research, applied research. I would say don't stop yourself from applying because of that. Is there a push and interest for either researchers to publish in more academic venues? Someone said, I know Lara recently had a great fact paper. I agree, it was really great. Maybe Lara and Roshni, would you like to answer this question on whether there's a push for public publishing?
I'm happy to take a stab, and then Roshni, if you've got anything to add, feel free. Well, thank you very much for highlighting my paper. That's very kind. I think Ada's made a real concerted effort in the last couple of years to at least be represented at some of the kind of core either ethics or data justice conferences. And I personally think for me as a researcher, I think putting on a bit more of a kind of academic writing hat, even though that's not necessarily purely, we don't adopt a purely academic frame of writing, and that's not our primary audience, given that where we are in the AI landscape at the moment, there's lots of attention around sort of industry development of AI, and lots of those audiences congregate particularly in quite often North American AI ethics conferences. So I think it's something that we could look to be doing more of, and if any researchers who accept the position at Ada have an interest in that, then I'm sure that's something we can support. I'm happy to also give advice on the process of academic writing where helpful.
Great, thank you. And having said that, there's no push in terms of like what you could expect maybe in an academic institution where, publication is kind of the key to, many aspects of progression, etc. So the only push comes from the need to share our evidence with wider audiences, as Lara was saying, and you will have opportunities, but it's not a push as such, in case you were asking this from an academic kind of understanding of what this means. Someone does a nice question: what does a day in the life of a researcher, a day that look like? Roshni, would you like to give it a go at this one?
Sure. The days are quite varied. I don't think it's like a very fixed structure. I think everyone's day varies quite a lot. I can give the example of when I was working on the survey that I mentioned. So there might be kind of a 2-week analysis sprint where you kind of heads down in the data with kind of regular check-ins and internal meetings, and then kind of bigger external kind of check-ins as well, workshopping. So there was quite a nice rhythm of analysis, workshopping, writing. And right now I'm working on like a few other projects. So, some days might be prioritizing kind of one and then kind of using the other days to focus on a few other things. So at the moment I'm doing a bit of kind of responsible AI landscape mapping, as well as thinking about kind of public participation roundtables, and a few other activities as well that we're doing in the public participation team. So we're having kind of a public deliberation. So there's a day spent kind of working with external research institutes and thinking about the methods that they were proposing to us. So it's really varied. And also to add that we have kind of, I think, around 4 times a year reading weeks as well. So that kind of breaks up the year as well. So you have to kind of dedicated time to read and to really immerse yourself in the literature as well. I don't know, Lara, if you wanted to add anything.
I think you've characterized it really well, but I think I would just add that Anna drew it out earlier in the presentation, but we can be quite flexible in terms of how you like to work, and we all have, you know, different preferred working styles. I prefer to spend my mornings reading and writing and have meetings in the afternoon, but you might be the opposite. Yeah, I think it's a really nice work environment where you're kind of, you can bring your own work preferences to the role, which is really nice.
Great, thank you. I think we'll start wrapping up, but there's a question that's been asked in 2 different ways by 2 participants, and then Graham will also, I think, like to answer a few more questions related to HR. So maybe I'll just start quickly. The question that came up from a couple of participants was about the academic achievements and academic degrees and expectations around that. So, you know, there's no expectations. You don't have to have a PhD or even a master's. You know, you will see from the job description, we don't specify any of those. It's about being able to demonstrate some level of experience across research skills, project management, etc. So don't feel definitely go ahead and apply. You don't have to have these degrees to be suitable for the role. There was also a question on traveling. There is potentially some traveling, like Lara went to the FACT conference recently in Chicago. We go to different places in the UK for research, for example, if we are working with participants from different parts of the country, or for conferences, or for events. We take part in panels, events, workshops. So there is some traveling. It's not the biggest part, you know, in like other roles might involve a lot of traveling, but it does involve some of it. Okay, let's go back to Graham, I think, if you're ready now for a few more questions that I think we wanted to answer.
Yes, a couple of people have asked about expectations of coming into the office. So our kind of standard organizational policy is that if you're a full-time member of staff, we try and look for you to be in the office about 3 days a week, and the other 2 days you can work from home. But there is a little bit of flexibility of that. But I think, like I said earlier, I think after a number of us being stuck at home, working from home during the lockdowns over a few years ago, we've really valued the benefit of having that kind of in-person collaboration again. So we do really try and encourage that. And we have got a really nice new office space, which is a lot of people do enjoy working from. A couple of people have also asked around development opportunities. So this is something as a wider organisation, Nuffield Foundation, we spent a lot of time on this year, really just spending a bit of time thinking about what particular skills, whether that's kind of technical skills, but also kind of like personal effectiveness, soft skills that people want to be developed. So we've been putting in a program of kind of internal workshops around project management, different personal effectiveness skills, presentation skills, that kind of stuff. But also we ask all our managers, for example, within ADA, to really kind of sit down with their kind of team members and think about kind of their work and what they're working on in their longer term kind of career progression, and then really think how we can best support that. Whether that is through some kind of practical training, or whether that's through kind of shadowing opportunities, working on different projects. We're also looking at trying to establish a kind of a cross-organizational or cross-sector mentoring scheme for our employees. So we're always kind of looking for those types of opportunities. Our offices are, someone said, what part of London is the office in? We're near Farringdon, so we've got really great transport links in central London.
Maybe in the meantime, I'll answer another question on whether ADA provides space to train or discuss new research methodologies. And this also links to another question on needing experience and knowledge on AI. So yes, we do have runback sessions where we'll get together and each of us share our own expertise or knowledge on a specific topic, whether it's AI or whether it's research methodology, or we do invite also guest speakers from other research institutes, academia, industry, policy. So these are our main audiences as well, which someone also asked. So yeah, there's really lots of opportunities to learn about AI or to learn about other research methodologies. Someone also asked what type of qualitative methods we use. So it depends, of course, on what the research question is, what is it that we're going to research, and therefore what the best method might be. But yes, we do use a wide range of methods: ethnography, deliberative research methods, more conventional interviews and focus group discussions, roundtables and workshops as well. So yeah, a wide range. Back to Graham, perhaps, if you still have some to answer. I think we've gone through most of them, if not all of them.
Yes. So there's been lots of questions coming in, so it's been a bit of a challenge to keep up with them.
Yeah, no, I've been keeping an eye. I think there's a lot of overlap now. Maybe a question on how big the current team at ADA is. So at the moment we are, if I'm not wrong, because there has been quite a bit of growth, as someone's mentioned, almost 30 staff members. There has been a change as soon as an organization starts to grow a little bit more. And if you remember, we started in 2018, so we are still relatively new, although we've done a lot of work and exciting work, I think, since then. But yes, so we are putting in place the structure that we've gone through before with the different directorates, so that there's a bit more structure and researchers can also feel a bit more supported. But we do have lots of opportunities during the weeks for different directorates to come together and researchers to come together and discuss, what research topics are a priority for us to cover. So it's quite a collective way of working, even if there's been some structure put in place to be able to manage the growth. Lara, would you like to answer this question? You've been at ADA, kind of give a new perspective on this answer, since you've been at ADA a bit longer than I have.
Sorry, remind me the question.
Yeah, so the change from being a small team to a bit more, still a small team, but bigger than we were, I guess, compared to maybe a year ago.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, I think what's been really nice among this quite rapid growth, I think we've really maintained this quite collaborative approach to research. So there are lots of opportunities to feed into research projects in a different directorate, and we're quite active on Teams and online. So there's always interesting meta discussions popping up, which feels really nice. But equally, if you prefer to sort of like take a bit more time for more individual research, that's supported as well. But yeah, personally, I'm loving having lots more boots on the ground, and yeah, being able to work together with everyone, particularly in our brilliant office space. So yeah, it's been really nice to see the growth, I think.
Fantastic. So I think we've covered most of the questions. There might be some specific questions that I would advise you send an email to Graham at recruitment@Nuffield. Unless, Graham, is there anything else you would like to add or to answer?
No, just there's been a couple more people asking again around timing. So just to kind of confirm, so the current researcher roles that we're advertising, the deadline for applications is 9:30 a.m. British summer time on the 19th of July. Then we'll start the shortlisting process after that. And I'm just double checking, but I believe interviews are scheduled for the first week in August. Yeah. So the 3rd and 4th of August is what the dates we have ring fenced for interviews. So I'd like to think that we would be wrapping up any offers towards the middle end of August. Like I said, with a view to then hopefully having candidates be able to start, successful candidates being able to start with us potentially from September, October.
Great, thank you so much.
And also just to end on something a bit nice as well. Someone has asked, oh, do we have any social opportunities? Yes, I mean, like any of our teams, there's both social events happening within ADA, but then across the wider Nuffield Foundation, whether that's kind of after work socials, or we have different lunchtime events, whether that's just people kind of having lunch and just chatting. But we also have some kind of semi-formal networks. For example, we have a research network where all the researchers from different parts of the organization just kind of share their experiences and just talk about the different research projects they're working on. We have different speakers, sometimes coming in the wider Nuffield Foundation. We're a research funder, so quite often we have people whose work we've funded come in and talk about kind of their research. So that's there's always lots of stuff happening in the office.
There is. We just had a climbing session yesterday. So yeah, definitely, we're a very social organization. And I think on that note, we will wrap it up. It's 45 minutes. Thank you so much for participating. We hope this has been useful. The recording will be available online, but if there's a question that we have not answered, please do email. Could you remind us of the email, Graham?
Yes, it's recruitment@nuffieldfoundation.org. It's also on the advert listing on ADA's website.
Perfect. So you can find it online as well. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you to the panelists, and we hope to hear from you. Have a good day, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Goodbye.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.